I'm still not Jamie Dornan. I've really been working on it, but it's just not working out for me. I hope you all had a wonderful screening. I'm thrilled now to introduce you to your panel for this evening. First of all, please welcome your host for this Q&A, Jamie Dornan. We're also going to be joined by Emily Blunt, and we have Cillian Murphy as J. Robert Oppenheimer. Please welcome him. And finally, we have Florence Pugh as Jean Tatlock. Please welcome Florence.
She's not up yet. Just keep it up.
Keep it going, keep it going. I'll see you after. Enjoy, Jamie.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We're all very excited, a little bit apprehensive over here for what's going to come. I guess I wanted to start by saying I hope you all enjoyed the movie. I certainly did. I haven't seen it in a while, but it was a hugely impactful film for me when I first saw it, as I imagine it is for all of you tonight. I know most of you have seen it before, am I right? Everyone's kind of seen it before, you know. This could get silly because Cillian and I have made a movie together, Emily and I have made a movie together. Florence and I have only met tonight, so I guess I want to start by...
We might be making a movie together.
No, not yet. Yeah, we will. We should.
We'll see how this goes.
I wanted to ask, start off by what are your initial impressions of me?
Give it 10 minutes.
Okay, great. What incredible performance by the central man, someone I admire massively, have for a very long time. I struggle to admit that I'm such a fond admirer of your work and of you as a human being, more importantly than any of the acting stuff. So I'm going to start with you, Cillian. Do you think there's anyone better that you could have... Sorry, I think you think it's yeah. Lads, come on. You think it's you think it's going somewhere else? Is there anyone better you could have trolleyed yourself to than Christopher Nolan? You did a film in Ireland, you know what that means. Okay. Attached yourself to then Christopher Nolan. What was the first year that you worked with Chris Nolan?
It's been 20 years now with working with Chris. I first met him in 2003. And I think we worked then in 2004 on Batman Begins. And then it was like, this is the 6th film together. So I feel like I've earned it.
Oh, listen, you've earned it, and that is, of course you have. Was there ever a point throughout any of those previous 5 jobs that Chris indicated to you that your sort of time will come, I guess?
No, no, that's not the way it works at all. Like, I mean,
I don't know how it works.
Well, so he doesn't own a phone. He doesn't own a computer. He doesn't have an email address. Like, he's a very analog man, and he generally the way it's worked is that Emma Thomas, his wife and producer, would call me and pass the phone to Chris. And then he says, in his very understated British way, you know, I've got a film and you do it better. And would you, you know, I've got this part, and I just say yes straight away. I've always said just yes. Before I read the script, because then he doesn't email you the script. He comes and flies to wherever you are.
Yes.
And hands you the script, and then you read it. And that's that's their methodology. That's the way they've always done it. I think it's become almost sort of a superstition now. You know what I mean? I think it's something they believe very strongly in, and I think he believes that, you know, you get something else from reading an actual, tangible, real document than you do from reading on a screen, which I believe in also.
Was there literally nothing? Was there never even like a conversation that you had about the idea of an Oppenheimer project? Like, how early are we talking here? Nothing.
I didn't know anything about it. Like, I don't, you know, we don't kind of hang out in between. Like, we don't go to Nando's together. You know what I mean? So there's not much communication, and then he, you know, he said to me that he didn't write the character with me in mind, but he said that when he finished the script and there was the picture of Oppenheimer on the book American Prometheus, and it was there, he was like, I think I know someone. I think I know somebody. So that's how it came about. Yeah.
I mean, the reality of that is you probably had an idea before that, I imagine.
You mean
sure
you?
He's had you in mind. Listen, we're all thinking it, you're saying it. Just not quite old enough.
It was always going to go this way.
I know it was.
Girls.
Oh,
Sorry, hold on, listen, is it the same for you? Like, and also, I'm intrigued by that, Cillian, because you said, like, you say yes. No matter what Christopher Nolan calls and offers you, you're going to say yes. I also know you very well, and I also know, and I don't think I'm speaking out of turn here, I think you've admitted this publicly, that you have a kettle rule to reading scripts, which is that if you are reading a new script, and at any point early on you think, I just go and put the kettle on, you know you're bored.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a reasonable metric or
I agree.
a
Listen,
reasonable
I agree.
yardstick, you know. And the thing about his scripts, there, like, I think myself and Emily were discussing this. You know, he's so world renowned as an incredible director, and like these films are astonishing. But I think people underestimate sometimes what a stunning writer he is, and
Sure.
it genuinely was the greatest screenplay I'd ever read. It was mind-blowing and mind-bending and important and hugely emotional and vast in its ambition and scale and the kind of epic nature of it. You know, you're kind of overwhelmed by it, but in a good way. In that you go, how the fuck? How am I
Are they
going
actually gonna...
Can I ask you a question? Did you imagine yourself when you were reading the character?
No, and to be honest with you, I don't like reading scripts going, yeah, I think I could do that. It doesn't appeal to me. It doesn't offer
So
me
you
any-
don't see yourself saying how you'd say the lines on any script you read?
No, it took me I got the script in September, and then we didn't start shooting until February, so I had 6 months to figure it out, you know?
So when you read the script, at no point were you
God, she's
imagining...
here, honestly.
Can I go?
Thank God.
So,
Anyway.
I love how they're like clapping along as well. Like, I do have other places I could go. Like, you want me to...
It's just intriguing because how we all break down scripts and how we all read scripts and how we decide whether we want to do them, and like you explaining how important the script was to you. To me, in the way that I break down scripts, it would be that I would have to see myself on every page, or I'd want to do every page in the way that I'd want to do it. So for you to say that you didn't is just really fascinating, that it was truly just the script that excited you.
Yeah, no, I
which
didn't have a clue.
makes the script even more important, I suppose.
It was tremendous, and you feel, how are we going to do this? But what I flipped from, like, exhilaration and kind of euphoria that he would ask me to do this into, like, immediately into, like, right, I'm starting to work. It was like I got off the phone and started to work. Before I'd read the script, I started to, like, read.
And how did you start to work, though?
Just reading and researching everything that was out there. I didn't know that much about him, to be honest, until I started.
And in terms of, like, body character and what you thought you needed to be seen.
When did you get here? Sorry. I'm just like...
Listen, we've all looked up to his work for a long time.
Long time, yeah.
Exactly.
Oh, my goodness.
Sorry.
Florence.
No, it depends.
Ask Emily
Who's
something,
actually
will you?
doing these questions and answers
Can I,
here? I'll give it
Can I
back
ask
to you.
Is it the same kind of situation with you guys where Nolan calls, you say yes? Or was there ever an element of, like, with Jean, you maybe thought there wasn't enough, or with Kitty, you thought maybe there wasn't enough, or it's so much centered around Robert Oppenheimer and what this fella here is going to do? Is there ever a moment of you going, like, I'm not sure I'll have the opportunity as an actor to, like, showcase anything or show anything off here or, like, add to the story, or are you just like, Christopher Nolan wants me to do something, I'm going to say yes?
Bit of both.
Yeah.
Christopher is someone that I have truly watched and wondered when and if that'll ever be possible. And then also, I've never been afraid of a smaller character. I think, to me, that is the biggest test. Like, if you can be in one scene in a movie and you can create an entire story around that one scene, then you are just as good as the lead. And I've always thought that whenever watching movies, like, whether it's the villain that's in one scene, or the stepmother that's in one scene, or the person that steals the puppies that's in one scene, like, that has always been the character that has owned the entire movie for me. So I've never been afraid of, like, of being enticed by a character that is only there for a brief second, because that's also how life is. People affect everybody on a daily basis, whether it's your coffee maker or your cleaner or your dog walk or whatever. Like, that person affects you in every single way. And so I've never, ever been terrified or scared or ashamed of being excited by a one-scene character. And so, especially for this movie, also being enticed by working with someone like Christopher, like, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You're there to play a part, which is that you've affected someone in some way. And especially in this storyline, my character affected someone in a massive way, and in a way that we don't actually get to see the full story of, but we get to see hints of. And I think when watching the movie, we see Jean as an honest warning. It's like, she is a warning. And the way that she reacts and the way that he reacts is a way of the audience at some point will react to. And I think I'm very grateful that I was able to have that opportunity, and I wasn't scared of it. It was quite exciting that I was only in a slither of it.
Yep.
And it was like up to me to decide how much I wanted to be a part of it in a way.
You were a huge part of it, and you were monumentally terrific in it. And I'm going to pose the same question, Emily. You know, I think it's a fascinating thing with Kitty, because I know I text you sort of jokingly saying, like, are you going to remain out of focus in the background for the entirety of this movie? And then it became something totally different. You are electrifying in the film, and you're giving your everything, as you always do. Did you and Chris have a lot of chats about, like, how to make the most out of what was on the page? Did you feel like you did do that? Do you think, like, what ends up in the film is more than what's on the page? I also want to talk about, like, your presence in the movie, because you're talking about someone who is often, they're not like falling around the road drunk, but there's an idea that this woman is using alcohol to get herself through the days and to deal with the sort of, you stay in the background of it all. And how it's a very, I'm sure it's a very tricky place to land in terms of, like, how do you have someone impactful? Obviously, there's scenes that are written where you come to the fore and you have a huge impact. But with someone who is sort of deemed to be in the background and not able to contribute because of the state you're in, without making her look like a fucking mess. You know, it must have been a very tricky thing. Did you and Chris talk about it a lot?
I mean, Chris is remarkably curious, you know, as to what you might bring for someone who's written it. I think sometimes there can be a bit of a straitjacketing effect if someone's written it, that there's some presupposed idea of what you might do. But I think we all found him quite curious, you know, on the day of what you might bring. I mean, I did find her this startling force of a person on the page, you know, so for me there was so much there to play with. You know, I remember even that first scene where we have our first scene on the cliff top and we're riding horses, and you know, she's rattling off her whole life history, and you could read it and go, oh, it's just a biography of where she's been. But I saw the scene as like a seduction, you know, that she's trying to just tell him at great velocity sort of how interesting she is and how many guys she's been with and what a seductress she is. And so surely if he wasn't with her, then he'd be missing out and blah, 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 you know, and that kind of how I saw it. But for me, it was there. Like, it wasn't that I sort of made that choice. I feel Chris wrote this very colorful, fierce, complicated, very difficult woman who I think was having to sort of contort herself to some 1940s, 1950s ideal of a housewife, you know, and she was a fucking terrible mother and a terrible housewife, and so wasn't built for it and was meant for great intellectual endeavors, and it was all sort of squandered, and I think she sort of drove herself insane at the ironing board. And I was very grateful, obviously, for the scene towards the end where she does get to sort of, you know, rip the face off Jason Clarke. You're like, oh, thank God someone will fight for him, you know? And I remember on the day, Jason, who was so brilliant, wasn't he? And he was so powerful, he was so intimidating. And I remember that scene, and again, it's Chris's sort of openness to whatever the actor wants to bring. And I remember Jason, I don't know if you remember this, Kill, he goes, yeah, I think I'm just gonna I wanna move my chair really close to her and just get really close to her, intimidate her. And it was that kind of amazing choice, the sort of toxic masculinity to just intimidate you physically with their presence. And I remember feeling my whole body go, like I was bristling with like anger from it, and it really helped. And yeah, it's sort of, I like that she is at that point, as you said, like she's so unpredictable, she's unreliable, she's clearly using alcohol unhealthily. But I felt like, you know, she got a kind of reclamation of that brilliant brain that had probably gone to waste. And Chris was always sort of open to how you wanted to play the scene, and yeah, sort of interested. I remember him being just terribly interested in whatever choice you made.
Kill, can I ask you a wee bit about your knowledge of the events and Robert Oppenheimer and what he was responsible for? And you are I know a big reader and an intellectual. You're a bright person, and you've got a lot of interesting thoughts and views. What did you know about him, and what were you? Did anything that you knew about him previous to this thing coming your way inform what you did with the part?
Honestly, I didn't know a great deal about it. I kind of knew about Trinity, the Trinity test, and I knew about 45, and obviously what happened in the Second World War. But I didn't know anything about what happened after that, and so that was all new to me. So then that's when the work began. That's when all the reading and research and all of that stuff started, and there is so much out there. You can kind of get lost in it. If you wanted to, you could really just drown in it. So I just kind of went at it bite by bite, and just and so you can start from the kind of inside out and the outside in. So I did both. I did work kind of on a parallel line with. So I was reading all the time, but then I was also working on it, kind of how he walked and talked and all of that stuff. And I was never going to do an impression, because that's not what I can't do them. But I knew that I needed to have something of his, because he was very iconic, and a lot of it was self-styled, it was self-mythologized, it was like very conscious. And he didn't speak like anybody else, and he didn't dress like anybody else, and is that ego driven? I don't know if it was. I think a lot came from the sort of, he, as you can see in the film, like he was very troubled, fragile adolescent. It was searching desperately for a sense of self, and I think he found that through his intellect, and then began to fashion this kind of exterior around it, in terms of how he carried himself, and you can see it in the film when he puts the hat on and that is a very much like, that is his cape and his cowl, if you know what I mean. That's when he becomes the sheriff of the town, and so all of those things. So it's just absorbing it. But Chris was all the way there throughout the whole prep process. And I remember I'd go to LA and I'd do camera tests and makeup tests with these guys and this amazing team here, and it was a very exciting time, just trying to find the character and find the looks, and so I love all that. I love all that stuff. But you never know. You just kind of, all of a sudden you arrive on set, and I would have taken another 6 months, but that's like, no, that time is finished, now you're on set. Yeah. So that's the way it goes.
And Florence, Jean ended up having a huge role to play in history, and is there an element of that you? I always think it's interesting when you're depicting a character that is, you only see one side of them, right? You're only telling one side of the story, and the movie stops at a certain point and you don't look beyond that. Does anything that you know of what happened to her and what she was responsible for that happened after inform how you take her on with what we see on screen?
I think that's probably what's most interesting about that character was, even in the script, quite clearly there is a lot that is unsaid. Even in the way that Chris decided to shoot it, it's definitely, you can believe which version of her death you want to believe, whether she was killed or whether she committed suicide. And there are many answers that can support equal.
Am I allowed to ask you what you think happened?
I think in regards to the medical report, it definitely seems like she had things in her body that she wouldn't have put in her body. Yeah. But that has been out there since she's passed away. So that's always been a question mark into how she died. And that's, I suppose the brilliance of Chris's subtlety in the way that he leans in on it. And many people that from my family that I've even spoken about the end of my character, they've watched it and they didn't see the hand on her head in one of the flash shots. They didn't see it. And I think that's truly the reason why we end up going back and watching his movies again and again and again, is because we see so many things on the second and the third and the fourth and the fifth watch. So can't remember your question. But yeah, what was the question again?
Nobody knows.
No one knows. No one knows. Did I know? That was that was it, wasn't it? Did I know? I think that was
Yeah,
it.
and it was in terms of like the legacy that she left behind and what people know she was responsible for and what we saw on screen.
Yeah, I think that I was allowed a wink, and that's absolutely fine.
Yes.
And I love the fact that I was given a wink, and I love the fact that you don't know, and it's completely up to the audience. And equally, it's timing, and I also love that it actually isn't about that. It's about like what they had in that time and how it affected him and how it affected her. And that you're a part of something for a second.
Sure.
And how that affects people. Yeah, there you go. Ta-da.
That's great. Cillian, you were the first person cast in this, is that right?
I believe so, yeah.
And when this...
Are you sure?
We can fact check that. There'll be people off there doing crunching numbers to find out if that's the truth. When they start building a cast around you that is so sort of insane, like, and huge and like massive, like household names, which is there an element of you that is sort of daunted by the fact that, this film is so you, like it's all you, and it's like, it's all your perspective. We are living and breathing with every element of you, and there's ever an element of like daunt that squeezes into your mind, or are you just like, I've got this?
No, I have to.
Because I'd be,
You, isn't it?
no, because I'd be terrified, I guess.
No, the thing about it is, it's for people that don't know, he had written the script in the first person, which was the first time I had ever encountered that. I'd never seen, I don't know if any of us had ever seen that he'd written it. So as I walk into the room, I meet Groves, et cetera, et cetera. So it's very unique, and you knew then it would be highly subjective storytelling. Yeah. But I also realized that, all of the people in the film, they're all people of significant consequence in history. He's like significant. Sure. So you then, therefore, to cast like the best actors in the world, that makes sense, because they need to be people of gravity, people of merit. Do you know what I mean? And they are. And Chris knew that. So it never feels like, oh, here's whomever turning up, because they're all of huge consequence in the story and in the film. And to me, it felt like it was like a joy that we became this kind of company of actors who were all there, and every single actor, so many of them not here, everyone just was there for Chris and for the story. And I know everyone says this about every fucking film, but there was no egos. Like, there was none of that. It's the truth. Because there wasn't any trailers. No one had a special makeup. Everyone had, like, it was all Louisa did everybody. And Jamie Lee did everybody, and so it was very as democratic as you can get on a huge film like this. So I felt tremendously supported by them as people, and by them as they're hugely talented.
And do you sort of think it needed to be like that? Like, a film like this wouldn't have succeeded with ego and with one person having a bigger trailer than the rest. And like, I'm sure it was a difficult shoot. It was a long shoot. There was, particularly for you, I'm sure there was a lot going on, a lot of burden on you. Do you think that sometimes a situation like this, you just need that fucking element of, like, a company who are all in it for the common goal?
I think so. We shot the film in 57 days. There was no time for anybody to be, like, flipping out about their matcha, whatever, fucking, it was like, there was no time.
Look, I love matcha tea. I don't know what to tell you. I love it.
It is great. It is great. In all fairness, it's great.
I do think that I was only on it for 2 weeks, and on the first day that I came to work was the day that we did our party scene. No one sat down that entire day, not because they weren't allowed to, but also because, like, no one wanted to. Everybody was a part of it. It truly felt like I was given, like, an award where I was able to witness what it was like to be on set of how it was to make movies when movies started being made. It truly was like, this is how we make movies. We make movies with a great director, a great cinematographer, a great lighting team. Everybody was the best of their ability. And you don't want to fucking sit down because you want to talk to someone and you want to ask them questions. There was no moment in the day where you wanted to get your phone out. First of all, you weren't allowed to. But second of all, you wouldn't want to.
Yeah.
Like, you wouldn't want to. You wanted to ask questions. In the middle of our sex scene, the camera broke. No one knows this, but it did. Our camera broke when we were both naked. And it was not ideal timing. And there weren't many cameras. And one camera was in the shop being fixed, and Chris turned and asked someone, where's the other camera? Camera was in the shop. Bad news for that person that gave him the news. And then we had to figure out how to fix this camera. So Cillian and I are in this room together, and, like, it's a closed set, so we're both holding our bodies like this. And this camera surgeon comes into the room and starts doing, like, on this camera because this camera is broken. And I'm like, well, this is my moment to learn. So tell me what's wrong with this camera. Like, you just make your moments. And I'm like, what's going on with the shutter here, buddy? Anyway, he explains, and actually Chris comes in and tells me that it's because the light is coming in right. It's just crazy that every person on the set was so knowledgeable and was so ready to make this kind of a movie that there was no dull moment. It was all amazing. It felt like we were lucky to be there every second of the day.
Do you ever get a sense, though, that, like, that should be the crack all the time?
Yes.
Yeah.
Like,
that's
I
why it's
really
so
do.
special.
Like, and it shouldn't be that fucking hard, like, to have a group of people that are all kind of clued into the same wavelength, who sort of all see it the same way creatively and want to achieve that the same way. And we all know that we've all been through experiences where it's just like the opposite of that, and there's so many things that are against each other, so many opposing forces, and it can be a nightmare. Like, it can be an absolute nightmare making it, when sometimes it's easy. Cillian and I did a job that was super easy, that we had, like, the best time. You and I had a great time making a movie together. It can work that way. And Emily, what do you think at the very sort of epicenter of why that sometimes doesn't work? Do you think something it is truly the director? Do you think someone like Chris Nolan, I presume, I worked with his script supervisor once, and I knew that this guy did all his stuff, and I was like, that's cool. Corky, yeah, exactly. And I was like, this is cool, but this guy has the same team right the way through, and that says a lot.
I mean, I think everyone is filled with so much admiration for him. I mean, I think he has this ability to, not just for us guys, like for everyone, he sort of tightens the screws on everyone. So everyone has to kind of match this this tremendous brain of his and his abilities and all his capacities. So you are sort of stretched within an inch of your life, and it's quite exciting and sort of like wonderful. I think there's no hierarchy. I think because Chris sort of hates all the faff. I feel like there's a lot of faff like on set usually, and like it even came down to like I mean, it's now people know about this, but like he sort of hated if I wore my Ugg boots on set just for comfort, or like Ellen would give me a lovely warm-up jacket, you know, in the New Mexican winter desert. And I remember Chris going to me, "Can you take your actor security coat off? Can you take that?" And he just wants to kind of do away with all of the stuff, and it's not the comfort, it's just probably the unnecessary faff of my Ugg boots that I probably would have been fine walking in with my heels like I did today. But it's like, I don't know, it's just, I think if you strip it all away, there's a tremendous focus on set, and it's not strict, it's not unpleasant. It's just really freeing. And I think because we all feel so safe with him. I realize so many actors a lot of the time, you know, if you're there in the scene worrying about, oh, well, I don't really like this scene. I'm not really sure about the writing. I'm not sure about this shot or this thing. It all disappears with him. You only have to worry about what you're doing. And I think when actors feel safe, they take flight. And that's why the performances he gets in all of his movies are so exciting, because everyone feels safe.
I think the best directors in the world are super economic. Yeah. You know, they really are. They strip all that shit away that like you don't need to be worrying about. And it's just like, let's focus on telling the truth of this situation, which in this moment, I trusted all the people I've always worked with around me to like set up the lighting and capture that element of it. And the truth is just you and I figuring this out. And it is an amazing thing when that is discovered, and it's often not, as we all know, probably me more than most. But it is an unbelievable thing when it is collectively discovered.
Like there's no video village, for example, which is kind of like, you think, why is that such a revolutionary idea? But it shouldn't be. Yeah, it's just the cameraman, Chris, and the boom op. And then it's just this private little laboratory where you're making the scenes. And there's not, like all of you guys standing behind looking at it, there's just us making it. Yeah. And that's the way it used to be.
But that's what I love about it, and what you've told me about him, Kill, is like the sort of old school element of it. And I feel like when we worked together, I feel like I carry so much of like how I behave on set and how I approach work now through what I film called Anthropoid. It's available on every platform imaginable.
Every platform.
Every platform imaginable. They did like a buyout clause for like everything. No, but that thing of like, you know, I don't bring my phone to set. I probably did before. There's an element of like having fun, but also super focused on the work, and like forensically going through the sides each day and going like, how do we make this sing, you know? And it's an incredible thing. And then the amount of times you turn up on set and that isn't reciprocated, then nobody else wants to do it that way. And I wonder like how much of like Chris informed I mean, you've worked with some greats from Ken Loach early on in your career. You know, is Chris a big part of how you approach your work because you've done 6 things with him?
Definitely, I definitely think he's influenced me in a big way. I think that thing that Emily mentioned, that word focus, is like, that's key. And also time, which is the thing that always, I could never figure out on film sets. Yeah. Time is the most important commodity you possibly have. Yeah. So like when Chris, it's like on 7 o'clock on set, he's like, there, and we're gone. And for like 12 hours, and that's it. And there's no one standing around checking their phones or like chatting about the football match or whatever the hell. It's just focus. And he expects excellence from every single crew member, every single actor, and everyone then rises to that. There's not spoken. There's no manifesto. There's no talk. Everyone just reaches that level then naturally. And I find that like I want to have as many minutes in the day as I possibly can to work on this scene. You know, so it just seems logical.
You also can't lie, like, ever. If you're 10 minutes late because you were sat on the loo or anything, like, if you arrive at work and say that you were stuck in traffic, he'll be like, but I but I checked this morning and there was no traffic on this road at this time, so you were late. Like, he genuinely is a part of the entire day. There is no way for you to come to work bluffing your way with anything. He expects you to be there because he knows everything. When you're supposed to arrive, when you're supposed to be in hair and makeup. It's kind of amazing and crazy at the same time.
Well, that's great.
So it means that from the moment you arrive, you're there to do the best work because someone is watching, but in the most beautiful way.
He's given you the opportunity and he's created an environment for everyone to do the best work, and that is a massive thing that a director do that so many don't. And you're telling me to wrap it up. So I guess it's my job to say thanks a million for being here, for taking up 3 hours and 10 minutes and the Q&A time of your Thursday evening. And just a massive round of applause to 3 people here who have just done the most incredible work. So
Thank you so much.
thank you.
Thank you, Jamie.